Hello and a warm welcome to this Kaya Biz special. I'm Gugulethu Mfuphi, the host of Kaya Biz on Kaya 959. And as you would know, we broadcast every Monday to Thursday between 6 and 8 p.m. where we discuss a plethora of topics that influence the business and financial agenda. Everything from the markets to business insights, sectorial reviews, the property space, and of course, key conversations that I thoroughly enjoy, which is speaking to business leaders. Now, typically we do this on Pivot Point, but today we have a very special edition of what we call the CEO Plug. And this is where we get to speak to influential leaders in the South African business landscape from across all sectors who themselves are influential in shifting the radar. And today we speak to someone who's doing exactly that within the property space. Someone who's taken it upon herself with her business partners to truly democratize access to property ownership, property investment, and even property development. Not only just creating a new way for South Africans to create wealth for themselves, but most importantly, also ticking the boxes when it comes to regulatory approvals. So if you've heard of Ekasi Noble Properties, today we're in conversation with the managing director of the business, Mapaseka Mojaki, who joins us as our guest today. Mapaseka, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me. Okay, Oskuka.
Good day, Mapaseka.
Nice to meet you.
I hope I said your surname correctly. Hey?
Yes, no, it's fine. I am Mapaseka Mojaki. I was born and bred Go Northwest, a village called Taung, Komahoho.
Okay.
So I'm here to represent so many Ekasis, you know.
Yes.
But anyway, I grew up Go Soweto, Go Proteatland. I think that's where I actually grew my love for e-property, you know. Went to high school, Go Ekasi, primary school, Go Ekasi, and all of that. And I would see people owning these big properties, buildings, and all of that. And I thought, you know what, I want to be like them. And then come matric, come varsity time, and then you find out properties are actually millions,
Yeah.
you know. And that already discouraged a lot of people, or myself, if I can speak for myself, okay, where am I going to get 10 million from, you know, or 1 million, or whatever the case that might be. But I grew up close to people that were property owners, my parents themselves. And now, actually, 2023, when I checked their title deed, they got the property, property land. In 1993, it was 30-something thousand rands.
Whoa.
But they paid it for 20 years. But anyway, back then it was expensive.
Makes sense.
Yeah, so that's basically where my love grew for property.
I'm so intrigued by this because, as you say, when you talk about property and your love for property, it's a very complex issue. It's the money, it's the development, it's ownership versus rent, it's knowing where to buy because location is key.
Exactly.
And I can imagine when you start thinking about the business side of it, it becomes even more complex. So
that's true,
when you started Ekasi Noble Properties, 2020 in January, help us understand what kind of research you had to take into account to actually build the business.
Absolutely. So on social media, thanks to social media, I was following a lot of property gurus. I would obviously check how are they doing it, you know, and I actually learned a lot from one of the guys where they would obviously come together and just, you know, become one. There was a company I was also working for. It's a property industry as well. They did exactly what we are doing. And I was just a worker there, you know. And I thought, okay, if I'm making this company to actually grow and be big, it means I can also, you know, do something that can also create the impact and have the power to create the change, you know.
But that's brave. Because let's be honest, to move from being an employee to saying, no,
to an employer.
Man.
Exactly. No, it is big. It also has to, you know, you have to be brave enough to actually lead, you know. But I come from a background also from Go HR. Yes, I was an employee. But Go my department, I was sort of a leader because we were given a target for employing people. And then I would excel when doing that, you know. I'd always come out the best in the team or the group, rather. So I've always been a team leader, basically, in everything that I do. And I also come from a background, events management. You need to plan and execute and make sure that you organize your things accordingly. So having to deal or work with a lot of people, it has always been my thing. And helping people also to survive has been one of my things as well, because Go HR, people, after we would grant them jobs, they would come back and say, thank you, Mapaseka. At that time, it's an older person, and I'm like, yo, Yeah, so giving back to the next person would actually has made me actually to become Mapaseka.
Yeah.
So yeah, the love of property, it has been amazing. Like you're asking, I've done my research. Areas in Soweto like your Protea North, if you get the background that thing, how were they developed? I actually got in love with that because I think it was like someone who came to the community and said, if you guys can buy stands for the community to build your own type of houses and build for yourself so that 5 years later you don't owe anyone. And I saw that and I learned a lot from that. And that's when I actually took everything into my hands.
I'm glad you mentioned it because maybe let's start there, right? Because that sets the basis of how you actually work as Ekasi Noble Properties. For a lot of us, we just, visit your website. We're well aware that for a small deposit, you can either get an opportunity to own a property or actually invest in one in the long term. But give us the behind the scenes of the business because before Gugu comes with her 10,000 Rand, there's a lot of work that you've put in.
There is. Thank you for asking that. So basically, go Ekasi Noble Property Development. What we do, we go and identify the land that has got the potential to be developed, either as a private estate or either a school or office park like this.
And is this anywhere or where there's a lot of interest and demand?
The location, yeah. You check the location, the interest and the demand, of course, because you can't go where people would be interested in, So most of the areas that we are developing, the locations are actually key, So what happened in 2020, we identified the land and obviously we did the whole feasible study and we obviously had to know how much would be the purchase price of the entire land, which personally I couldn't afford that, obviously.
I'm sure hundreds
of
millions.
No matter how rich I was, yeah. So I had to obviously call people from the community. Some of them were family and some of them were friends to say, guys, if we can actually contribute towards purchasing this land. And then as Ekasi Noble Property Development, we do the whole admin. Whenever you pop out your money, you relax, we do the whole studies. It's not done by us personally. There's professional stakeholders that are involved, like your town planners, your land surveyors. And
tell us about the importance of these studies, right? Because this is actually what makes the difference in terms of the sustainability, the security and the longevity of the property investments here.
It's a lot of process. A lot of people don't want that, actually. And Liruna, that's what we learned, go Ekasi Noble Property Development. I think the first development land that we got, it was an agricultural land, meaning it still needs to be, like the studies were supposed to be done and all of that, which takes time. Actually, 2 years later, we are still finalizing that.
Whoa.
We've done everything, though. We've submitted to the municipality, but then because there's so many different departments, there's water, electricity, there's sewer, there's all of those different departments. So your application has to rotate amongst those departments, and it's people and it's government.
Yes.
So there has to be those type of delays that are taking place. But from that experience, it taught us to say, going forward, we're no longer going to go for the agricultural land because of that whole process that takes time. And really nobody has time, unfortunately. But if it's something that's going to last for a lifetime, unfortunately, we don't have a choice as we are waiting for these studies to be done, go the other development.
Got you.
But because God was good and he saw that we might not have enough time to wait for the one development to be done, he then blessed us with another smaller unit development, which was in Robben Park, in Randfontein, the west of Johannesburg. So that one, it was already approved, which was a nice part. So we only did the last touch-ups for the development itself to start being a development. Actually, good news is that last week we just received an approval from the NHRBC.
Okay.
The NHRBC is the one that deals with the longevity of the structures, how strong will the structures last, and all of that. They actually have to come on site when the foundations are being built, and then they need to give out a certificate to say, okay, they were there, they saw everything. And then the next level is going up in terms of the structures of the building itself. So there's step-by-step processes until the final house is built. It's a lot of work.
I didn't realize that it was that much work, right? Because a lot of us just think, oh no, you dig a hole in the ground, maybe 2 meters deep, you put in the foundation and then you put the bricks up. But what you're reminding us of here is the quality assurance.
Exactly.
And the fact that people's lives are going to be at risk if they're in these buildings.
Do you understand? And actually there was I don't know what to call it. There was a case with the other developer that I grew up aspiring or looking forward to be like them, where they built houses and a few years later there was like a lot of wind or whatever that was, and then all the houses, the roofs, everything came out.
Yeah.
I think it's still a case by now, but I don't know. But anyway, we're just trying to avoid that as new developers because we wouldn't want to have that, you know, on our...
Definitely.
But we cannot avoid that. And the reason why we'd rather be delayed is because we need to follow those processes. Otherwise, if we were to be doing things for ourselves and because of time, we could have started building a long time ago because we own
Makes
these
sense.
properties and there's nothing really that's stopping us. Because of the development housing law, it's a must to wait for the right reasons and then your development will flow.
Yeah, I think this is so important, Mapaseka, because what we're also emphasizing here is how you basically secure the investment of, you know, the investors who are going to come to you and say, I'm looking to purchase a primary home, or I'm actually looking to invest independently, or I'm looking to invest with a stock file.
Absolutely.
And now that you've described this whole process within the background, help us understand, by the time Gugu, Njabulo, Cherryl comes to you, what kind of information do you share with South Africans? Because let's be honest, purchasing a property is a big deal.
It is.
Affordability is tight for many South Africans.
Absolutely.
So how do you make it easy for them along that journey?
All right. So we work exactly as the big developers that has been around for years, that has built nice estates with your waterfalls and all of that, which is where we are getting. But with us for the developments that we have, because also people are still skeptical, we still have to educate our people. Guys, come on, this is what has been happening for years without us knowing. Actually, there's opportunities when you invest into a development while it's still early. But nonetheless, when people come to us, we take them through the whole process. When needed is an envelope there. So we give out those documents for people to go and verify, because it's important for you to know where exactly are you investing in. It's important for you to know where your money is going to. It's important to know how long will the development process take. Because yes, you might be saying you are investing into buying a vacant stand where you will get a title deed. And then once the approved plans are ready, you can now start building. Obviously, after the NHRBC has approved. But people don't understand that process. Like you were saying, they just want to come when the building is ready like this. But with us, good news is that by this week or next week, we should start building our show house, because last week we got an approval from the NHRBC. So it's a milestone for us, and we are grateful for that. And that's where most people will now come and say, oh, this is what we were doing. But for some, it will be too late. But for those who invested when we started, because the people that came back then, I think a year ago, they came and they said they wanted homes for their families. And we said, okay, we do have that opportunity to give to you, but it's a process. What you can do now as Siskuku or anyone, you can just come and secure the land, because it's not there as at that time when they came. And then, Tina, we do the whole development process, like I said. Once title deeds are ready, we hand them over to you. We're still going to advise you and guide you to building the house that the NHRBC has approved.
Got you.
You understand?
And this is according to different plans or structures and offers that you might have on your books. What I'm keen to also talk about, though, and this comes back to the fact that, again, money is tied to mention for South Africans, right? Interest rates are much higher than where they were in 2020. And it's difficult for people to trust people with their money. So when I come to Ekasi Noble Properties and you say to me, Siskuku, you have to wait a year or two or three to actually own this property. It's a tricky dynamic to manage. So how have you, I guess, built a level of trust with some of your investors to make sure that they do come on board?
Definitely. So like I said, when they come, first thing first, we become transparent with them. We're not going to say, in 6 months' time, you are building. And then also what I've seen working for us is keeping the relationship with our investors. So we normally have a workshop exercise where every 2 to 3 months we call them all together in one room and give them the report, the progress. Which, okay, guys, from the last time you came, let's say March, and now it's May, June, here's the progress. And then whether we have challenges like the other development, we do call them and say, guys, Lana, there's going to be delay. Unfortunately, it's beyond our control. But it's the municipality, or it's the neighbors around, or it could be whatever. But what has kept our trust with our investors is communication and transparency.
Yeah, definitely. Well, if you are just joining our conversation, we are speaking to Mapaseka Mojaki, who is the Managing Director of Ekasi Noble Properties. And as you can tell, we're getting some insight and great depth of knowledge with regard to not only how this property company does work in democratizing access to property ownership, investment and development for many Black South Africans and other people of color too. But Mapaseka, I think you've really given us a great level of insight into the business. What I'm keen to discuss is some leadership insights on your part, what you've witnessed from an industry dynamic, and I think I really want to bring it back home to your observations of property ownership within Black communities in South Africa. Many of us know that we value our family homes. Gugitila, literally. And you've also had to educate people to adopt a very different mindset to say, not only are you creating a home for yourself and your nuclear family, but you can also have an investment that future families will actually benefit from, where there won't be any fighting. What have your observations been about Black property ownership in South Africa? So who's buying? Why are we buying? How long are we buying for? Where are we buying? And do we understand the greatness that actually comes with having an asset that is this big?
Yeah, it's a lot, you know. From my observation, we still need a lot to learn from as Ekasi. What I've realized is that most people can afford, and unfortunately, the financial institutions in some of South Africa, they are sidelining those who can afford but who are blacklisted. And unfortunately, it was just a small mistake where after matric, I decided to go open an account and. Do you understand? And also the sad part is that we grew up, like you're saying, re-10, re-13, and all of that. But I believe those people back then, if they were given an opportunity to invest in such opportunities that we are trying to offer them, a lot of people could have been owning properties, right? Because what I've seen is that to those who can afford, I don't want to make examples, but there's a lady or a close person that I know. So I'm not going to say it's a disadvantage. I don't know how to put it. But me personally, if you would give me an option to buy a stand or buy a building and pay off for 20 years, I'll buy a stand. And then, Tina, what is the advantage of it? You don't buy it cash because we do understand that you still have to, but we do have a payment arrangement that you strictly have to follow. So if it's a deposit and 6 months to pay,
Gotcha.
You need to do that, right? But the nice part is within less than a year, you own that property. If the development is quicker, you now have a title deed.
Gotcha.
During that process, also, we help you to remedy your credit score, try and increase it. If there's, debts that you need to pay from Dala, we advise you to go and pay them so that when you are ready to build, you can go back to the financial institution and say, okay, now I have an asset.
Which is the land.
Which is the land that you got from Ekasi Noble Property Development, And then we also help you to go to our bond originators. They work with all the banks from South Africa. They can be able to offer you the building loan according to your affordability. And that building loan, you can build your double story, your whatever house that you can afford. But the nice part about that, you will pay them off within 5 years.
Makes sense. And I think this is also an indicator of the fact that we might lack knowledge, right? We often think that the building and the title deed is only related to the structure, but not the actual land that you're able to use. And you're highlighting another aspect here that we often tend to forget. Many South Africans, we purchase property to live in, to stay in, and then we're comfortable. Once it's paid off, we relax. But we forget that this is an asset that you can actually leverage for business financing, for other forms of financing and funding, to make sure that you actually build more wealth by using credit. So is that also another mindset that you find needs to shift, where when we think credit, instead of recognizing that this is just a way of using someone else's money or the bank's money to help me generate a greater asset?
Absolutely. So we can be able to use both, and leverage and use someone else's money to achieve your goals and things like that. But what I've also noticed with our investors, like you are saying, Guti, Tina, as people from the township, we were used to buying just one property. Ukule, abantwana, they fight for that property. Times have changed. And what I like, or what I've noticed about our investors, is that they invest in each and every development that we have. There is a client who have more than 8 stands in our company, simply because once they are done building in those properties, they'll then have that generational wealth or generational income through us, of course, because it's possible.
Definitely.
So I think that's the mindset that people now needs to implement. Okay, yes, I do have my apartment. That is fine. Like most of our investors, they're also from Koteben or international Cape Town or whatever. They're not here, go Joburg. But they want to invest simply because once they get the stand ready, they start building. They're not going to live in that house, obviously, but they will own the property and they can rent it as they love. Then that is their generational wealth or the generational asset. No one will come and take it from them. So that's why I'm saying we are working exactly like big developers who've been working for years.
Yes.
And yeah, it's just that, we are doing it more raw and more Ekasi vibe type of thing.
Let's talk about that, because so often there's a perception sometimes that anything black is not up to standard, not up to quality. It's a much smaller business. You need skin in the game. So how is that, I guess, influenced how hard you've had to work in the industry just to prove that, guys, we are as good as the big guys, even though we might be slightly smaller?
Exactly. I mean, every company or every big developer or whatever, it was once a new company.
Yeah.
Take Coca-Cola for an example. When they started, only 4 or 5 people bought it and the rest were like, "Ay, and easy."
Yeah.
But look at it now, But nonetheless, Runa, we were blessed with working, Mr. DJ Sbu
Yes,
from the
yes.
More Fire brand. So 2 years later, he is still with us simply because he's very
Yes.
smart. We countile, okay.
We've seen him in your interviews.
Yeah,
and your,
but
on your
what I like
website.
also about him, besides business and everything else, he's very humble. And for the fact that he created something also from scratch, and he also got that negativity from the people who is he creating an energy drink, whereas there's all these types of energy drinks. And then he showed them. Today we have Imo Fire. So it's the same as the Ekasi Noble Property Development. Yes, a lot of people are still skeptical, but what I can tell them is that if it was not a good thing that we are doing, DJ Spoo wouldn't be here to risk his brand or whatever the case that might be. In fact, we have helped him as well to actually be in the property development, because mostly property, people know which are in an apartment to go pay, then you buy your second property or even your third, but mostly baphelela lapho, And with us, I mean, on my portfolio, I've lost count.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean,
That's beautiful.
I mean,
And for a young black woman in
property
South Africa,
developer.
that's something to be celebrated.
Absolutely.
So we congratulate you, Sis Mapaseka.
Thank
That's
you
a big
so
deal.
much. It is.
Definitely.
Thank you.
And not just only that, but you also happen to be the managing director of this business.
Yes.
And we're well aware that being a woman in leadership, we walked into your office today and you were so shy, but I love the confidence that you're exuding right now.
Oh, no, that's great.
Talk to us as to what the journey of being a leader, a female leader, in a construction, property, built environment where, a lot of the time you're actually interacting with male counterparts. What's that been like for you?
Sometimes I'll be like, "Eish," but anyway, I need to put it behind every successful man.
Yeah.
There's a woman. So I embrace that a lot. Ukuthi, you know what? It means I'm here for a reason, And maybe because, I dreamt about Ekasi Noble Property Development before it could actually happen. Like I prayed about it. I did everything to make sure that it becomes one of the biggest black company property developers. So yeah, it's great. It's a great feeling that we get to lead the men.
Yes.
But what's nice also, it's that I learn from the men as well. The attorneys that are involved. So it's a lot. I'm still learning also, because they like to put me on the spot and I'm like, no, guys, I'm not ready. You take it, take over, because at least when you're a man. And that's why when we started, I'm like, can I please have someone to come and represent?
Yes.
But anyway, yeah.
What I'm also learning about this is that it's not just about the gender dynamics, but a skills dynamic. And it seems as though you've also managed to surround yourself with people who are skilled and better experienced, perhaps in sectors that you might not be very strong in. And I'm keen to understand how that has also assisted you in your journey in building this business.
Yes. So like I said, Wuti, it helps to have a male partner next to me personally, because there's things obviously that I can't get access to. So I will just grab him and say, okay, you go, because maybe you might, since you are a male figure. And then that's how Mina personally I've come along with, you know what, there's things that I can do but there's also things that I just grab someone to say, okay, go and represent since you are the male figure. And I think I get away with that a lot because anyway, we work together and there's nothing that we can do about it. So I do try and balance there and there. The females are there in the industry and they're actually doing the great things. You know, I'm following women in constructions, I'm following women in property, how are they also doing it, and I think I'm learning a lot and I'm still yet to learn because we learn every day new things. Yeah.
Definitely. I love how you've referenced not only the partnerships with the key business leaders you have, but with the folks as well, like DJ Spoo, who have become ambassadors for your business. But you also touched on the spirit of working in an HR department and being an employee before becoming an entrepreneur. And I'm keen to understand from you 2 questions. How do you describe your leadership style? And how do you define success for yourself?
It would have been great if one of my staff was here to answer that. But from what I've seen them commenting, I think that I'm a very good leader. I've actually helped a lot of people to acquire things through me. You know, there was a time when one of our staff members had to take a break, and while they were taking a break, they were trying to do some other things. I would get calls every day to say, "Yo, Basi, thank you. I've learned this from you. I've learned that from you. Thank you. Keep going." So I think that for me helps a lot. I'm very humble. I am respectful. So yeah, ke Motswana and I do, you know, ke abamela molao and things like that. Yeah. So go for something that you think hore might work. Like for me, an example, like I said, I used to work for a company that I saw was going to be successful with me in it. And I thought, you know what, if maybe I can obviously do this and learn from them and other property gurus, I can be able to do that. And I focused on what I wanted. Consistency also helps to you know, to reach the success that you want, and always be transparent with yourself and with the other people. You know, push and people will follow, and the rest will be history.
100%. Mapaseka, I've thoroughly enjoyed our conversation today. You've given us so much insight into the backdrop of Ekasi Noble Properties, what it is you do, how you do it effectively, how you've evolved even to become a business leader. But I guess just to close it off on a sweetener for us, your vision for Ekasi Noble Properties in the next 10 years?
Sure.
What does it look like?
Yo, it's big, eh? It's really big. So we should be owning shopping malls. We should be owning business centers, office parks. We've started recently doing a resort, Go Northwest. So property is big, and we want to build your lagoon, private estates that has everything.
You guys
know,
are going to be competing with the biggest REITs and listed properties.
You understand?
On this JSE.
It cannot only be them. Let also, you know, let other children also be there. But it's a good thing which we are learning from them and we are admiring what they are doing. And if they can do it, we can also do it. So that's basically who we are. And employment, of course. I see a lot of people being employed by Ekasi Noble Properties and through all the departments, you know, because e-property, you have literally everything, everything from the bottom to the top level.
Full value chain, 100%. Mapaseka, thank you so much for your time today. We wish you all the best, onwards and upwards with your journey at Ekasi Noble Properties. And thank you again for your time today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, that was our amazing CEO Plugged conversation that we had today with Mapaseka Mojaki, who is the CEO of Ekasi Noble Properties. We trust that you've enjoyed this. Do share your thoughts, your feedback, and your opinion with us on our Kaya Biz page.